Welcome to the Always Level Up podcast with Yariv, Wolok, and my special guest this evening, former Philadelphia Flyer, former New Jersey Devil, current San Jose Shark, and also all the AHL squads in between, Kurtis Gabriel. Kurtis, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me, man. I appreciate that. It's the first time in a long time I can say that when I got introduced as a current NHL player. In the past, it's always been right, AHL player and all that. And I'm like, yep, make sure you call me an AHL player. But right now, this moment, NHL player, I love it.
Well, I honestly look at the full history of what you've done. I mean, if you look at what you've done so far, I mean, it's 40 plus games, I believe, in the NHL. It's 350 plus games of pro hockey. Like, that's how I think of it. And the way I see it is that your role primarily in the league is, I don't want to say a fighter, but because I don't mean like literally a fighter, but I mean people who fight for space, aggressive players, people who are energy type guys. These are really important players. I think that's important to point out about you.
That's a great spin on the word fighter. I'm fine you call me a fighter, but it's because I'm fighting for space all over the ice. I'm fighting for room. I'm fighting the details of the game to be effective. I think that's a great way of putting it. People that, the enforcer and all that, I could do with modern day enforcer. I could do modern day fighter, whatever works.
Yeah. But you don't always have to drop the gloves to be a fighter. And that's a big part of it. And that's kind of why I had you. So for those who are not aware, the theme of this show is, again, overcoming failure, perseverance, and just going through the ups and downs of life. Life is really just a series of ups and downs. And it might seem to the outside that, a skyrocket ship up like Connor McDavid. But even Connor McDavid struggles, you just never really hear about it. Yeah. He does, and everybody complains about it in the media for 6 years. But anyway, so happy to have you on. I want to start early, though. How did you get in hockey? Did you think you were going to go along this path? I mean, you were drafted in the third round by the Minnesota Wild. That's pretty high for those who aren't hockey fans who are listening to this. That is pretty high expectations. Typically, that is NHL caliber. I mean, you've hit the NHL level. You're 27 years old. I would say you are an NHL player. So, congratulations. But I'm sure it hasn't been like a pure ride up. Did you see yourself going along this path?
I mean, if you would have told me when I was playing, Redmond House League first year hockey that I'd be playing the NHL, I would just been like, hey, that's awesome. As a kid, I love hockey, but I'm just like playing hockey. My dad likes hockey. He likes baseball better, but I like hockey better. And he knew that, so I didn't expect to go on this ride. And you just love playing the game. I loved, the first year Team Red, and second year Team Yellow or Team Orange. We had like the Who Let the Dogs Out was our team chant. I still remember that. Still love going to the NTR, a little mini rink and playing. But no, it's, I played pretty much just like any other kid until, 10 years old. And then my dad's like, all right, you can't make a AAA team around here. They're too good. Let's try to get you to another town. So the local team, York Simcoe Express, was too good. They had a lot of future NHL level players and the high picks in the OHL draft. Barclay Goodrow was on that team. Daniel Canacci was the first overall pick. Ryan Murphy was 12th overall in the NHL. So they had a lot of high end players. So he got me all the releases from the local, other towns and very political, Southern Ontario hockey. And we went to the Richmond Hill Stars, and I made the team. And Barclay Goodrow so Barclay wasn't on that good team yet. Actually, he played with me on this team. So he moved on to that team I couldn't make later on. So this year he came as a AA Aurora Tiger. That was the rival team of my team I just came from, Newmarket, rivals. And his team had won the All Ontarios, and they knew that he was coming in to be their number one player. And I showed up at the camp, and they had no idea who I was. And I played awesome, and I was right there. It was Barclay, the guy they knew, and Kurtis, the guy they didn't know, and they were going to be our go-to guys. And I was really excited. My dad was like, wow, this worked out well, having all the confidence. And then my dad takes his own life at 10 years old. So that's when that hit for me, and confidence went down the chute. And mom just didn't know much about hockey at that time and said, let's just go back to Newmarket next year and play hockey for fun again. I think I went down to single A or double A. And played hockey for fun again until I was 16 years old. And I didn't even think about playing hockey after that. I was just I had no idea what I was doing with my life, just like a lot of 16-year-olds. And basically how it started is my mom just said, hey, that guy's going to try out for the local junior A team. You're a junior eligible hockey player now. You're old enough. You want to go try out? And I said, I guess. She's like, well, you're just as good as him. It's only $50. Go try it. I said, okay. And that day started everything for me. I went to that tryout as an unknown, and I played really well. And they basically said, like, you did like really well at a junior camp, but we can't take a AA player. You got to go play AAA somewhere. So there's a scout sitting in the stands trying to scout for AAA. I went and played for the Markham Waxers major midget AAA. So all the good players had already left for the OHL. So I'm playing major midget AAA, and the coach just says there, hey, if you're going to make it anywhere, you got to play more physical. And I'm like, huh, okay. Told my mom. She's like, okay, try it out. I'm like, okay. Start hitting a little bit. Kind of suits me. I've kind of always been an intense kid, like to go hard, like to get pumped up. And then I put in my first summer of training, quit baseball, realized that if I want to be good, I'm going to have to lift weights. That's what all these other guys are doing. Me and my mom just said, all right, that guy lifts weights. That guy's a skating coach. She forked out the money, called credit to her, and we went to work on the first summer of training, and I made that junior team the next year. So all of a sudden I was in junior hockey at 17. So then I just fell into the OHL, got a random tryout and just fell into the OHL. So I got drafted in the NHL third round. I've never thought of myself as a draft pick. It's still strange to me to hear I was drafted that high.
Yeah. No, it's funny because it's just like kind of graduating, isn't it? Like if you really think about it, like, you know, I had like a regular high school experience. I didn't know that about you, actually, about your dad. Obviously, I didn't dig that deep. So that makes this even more interesting. And I have to ask you something, and maybe it's a little personal, but
no, go for it.
At that age, I lost my dad about 3 years ago, right? But I'm in my 30s. Sorry. No, thanks. You know, but I'm 30, right? I'm an adult. Okay, so I have an ability to handle these to some degree, right? You're a kid. You left hockey for a reason, probably not because you didn't like hockey. What do you think stopped you from spiraling? You know, and I just to put that into context for people, if you look at statistics, young men especially grow up without fathers. Just like, at least in the United States, I know you didn't grow up in the United States, but in the United States, it's like, I think it's like 68% of young men go to jail for violence if you grow up without a father. It's incredibly high. I think a lot of that has to do with that term I was talking about, spiraling to some degree. How did you deal with that? How did you cope with that?
I guess I spiraled in hockey terms. That was where the spiraling happened. I didn't play because I had no confidence, and I was getting benched as a 10-year-old, which is crazy. But as far as life, I didn't spiral because I had a strong mother who became dad and mom. She has a strong family. Her parents, my grandparents, were very supportive and very helpful in those times. So really all the credits to my mom. She always raised us. She was a teacher, grade 8 teacher, strict, but not overly strict. Just you had to follow the rules, do your homework, be a good person, and you get to go play hockey. It was pretty simple. So I give all the credit to her for not spiraling. At 10 years old, like you're saying, when you lost your dad at 30, I had no idea what was going on. My brother was 7.5. Right. So very oblivious, just, you know, dad's gone. But it just kind of felt like a dream for maybe a little bit after that. But then once you start to hit puberty and mature, I started getting into, you know, 15, 16, 17, it started to become like, okay, well, I found out now a couple of years after at 10, I found maybe at 12, 13, he took his own life. Okay, well, why did he do that? Did he not want to be around to see me grow up? Did he not love me enough? What was going on? I had no idea, wasn't told anything. So I kind of internalized that. Instead of spiraling and maybe getting mad at the world, I just got mad at him and said, hey, mate, you don't want to stick around and see the man I'm going to become? Well, watch me become a pretty awesome dude. So that was my motivation more. It was out of like an anger to prove something to him. But then, which is, you know, so sad to look back on. And that's the mental health stigma we had back then. I found out, you know, 15, 16, he was mentally ill, gambling addiction and depression. So it's sad that looking back, I had to use that as fuel, but at least I used it in a positive way. Yep. But it's kind of sad. I had to be mad at him for a while because he was just sick. He wasn't weak. He reached out for help to a doctor and she set up a appointment for him a week later and he couldn't make it to that appointment. So maybe if mental health stigma is what it is today, he knows he can ask for help again. He doesn't just have to talk to a doctor that won't judge him. He could have asked his buddy, his macho buddy, and said, "Hey dude, I'm having trouble. I need to talk it out. I got to make it to my, psychologist appointment next week." And he wasn't able to do that. So now, it's such a different hindsight view of, at least I use it for a positive, but it's sad I even thought of my dad that way.
Yeah. But if you think about it, you can't hold yourself victim for something you did in the past if you don't feel that way today, right? So you have to think of it as like, in this way, and maybe you already do, right? Because I know you're a pretty positive person, but you have to think of it this way, that it kind of created your NHL path in a way, because the type of player you are, fighting for space. Again, I don't want to use anger because I don't necessarily think it's anger, but you have a fighter's mentality. You have that. I hate using that term fuel all the time, but it's that ability to kind of persevere, right? It is a fuel. I mean, we watched Tom Brady do it. I bring up Tom Brady because it's a rare thing to watch people take negativity and turn it and channel it into something positive, right? It's kind of what you are on the ice.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah, I've thought about this a lot, and I love David Goggins, and he talks about going to a dark place, right? So I definitely have a natural propensity to go to that dark place. Maybe at 10 years old, I got shown a little bit of dark of the world, a little darkness in the world of somebody taking their own life. And instead of, being, I guess some people could go that way, but my personality was to just lean into it. I've always leaned into discomfort. I don't know if I've built that habit, but I just did that. I just was, instead of being like, oh, my dad didn't want to be in my life, I gonna go, sit in the back of the room and not talk to anyone. I was like, frick that. In the back of my head, I was like, I'm still gonna do whatever I got to do and show why he should have stuck around to see the man I'm gonna become. So I've used that, maybe I learned that at a young age just by what happened in my life, and I was lucky enough to deal with it well. But I've definitely used that going forward throughout my career. I mean, that's now where I have the most fun, when I get to the dark places. To be honest, that's the most fun.
Yeah. And I think and honestly, credit to mom. I mean, obviously you did have the support structure around you to handle that type of stuff. And that is incredibly important to those who don't have that. And that's why I said America, you look at poverty levels and stuff like that. That's why a lot of these statistics are so high, because, things happen, you don't have the support around it. So now you're older today, but you can even go a little younger. You learned a lot probably over these years, right? You're 16, 17, you're trying to work your way into the NHL. What are you using? What's your daily routine at that age? You're trying to make the NHL. Are you disciplined? Are you living like a rock star because you're an athlete? What was your mindset? What did you channel?
Yeah, so I always knew I'm never going to be the most talented guy. If I was, I would have been playing AAA the whole way growing up. So I knew that, but I knew I was a good player at AA. I was captain of my team by that year, or before going to start playing junior hockey and stuff. So I knew I could play. I was obviously just playing to have fun. I didn't have a defined role, but I knew I wasn't going to be the most talented. So I had to do everything it took. So basically how I got this from my mom, it's like, you find out what the problem is, you look up what the solution is, and you make a plan, and then you go try to execute that plan. So that's pretty much what we did. So remember I told you, guys looked like guys started lifting weights at a certain age to get ready for hockey. Okay, need to check that box. I broke my wrist right after going to junior tryouts, and I had to cancel baseball, and I started working out with my cast hanging over the bar, squatting for the first time, and then the doctor's like, be careful, you're going to rip open, you have pins in there and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't care. I got to work out, get my legs stronger. So I started working out. My mom got the rink I started playing hockey at. She found a junior hockey player that was doing private lessons, started doing skills with him. Would go to 3-on-3 tournaments just to play in the summer, just to get more ice time. So really we just found out what other people were doing, made a plan, executed it, went all out at it. And when you do that, you're going to improve. It's just like it just became a simple formula. So, every time I'd go into the off season, I'd find out I'd identify what needs to get better, make a plan, go do it. And, I sacrificed a lot of time with friends. Not as much partying in high school for me. Not a lot of hanging out in the summer. It was sports all the time. So later on in high school, I definitely missed out on a lot of stuff, but I knew what I wanted. I knew that meant more to me than a little bit of time, I was going to hang out with like the other acquaintances at my high school. I had my core group of friends I stayed in contact with. That's all I've ever needed. I don't need a huge group. I just need a small group of friends. Go do what makes me happy. And what makes me happy is getting better at what I love is hockey. I just went and did it. It was like a very simple thing for me. I think a lot of people get distracted by a lot of other things, but I knew what I wanted. As soon as I told I had a shot to play higher levels of hockey that before I had no clue even existed. I didn't even know what the OHL was growing up. It wasn't in my hometown. Never heard of it.
Right.
So when I got a sniff of that, I was hooked.
Yeah. And to put it in a perspective, people, I believe your final season, I think you had a good amount of points as well.
Without playing the power play.
Yeah, without playing the power play, you 51. Had 51 points in 60 games. You were an assistant captain as well.
Led the team in assists, not playing the power play as the tough guy. So figure that one out. Maybe they should have thrown me on the power play. Maybe I had 70, 80 points.
Right. Yeah. Maybe you fight for space in front. And again, not everybody might be a hockey fan here. Again, that is the scariest spot in hockey. If you're a forward in front of the net, you're going to get hit. You're going to have to fight for that spot. So
it's the best place in hockey. If you want to be a hockey player, you better be able to go there.
Exactly. Well, and that's what I want to talk to you is about. You put this plan together. Did you see immediate results? Or was it?
Yeah, at that age, yes. At that age, my plateau, like my improvement curve was like straight upwards because I had just been a regular kid playing higher level basketball, baseball, hockey when it was hockey season, volleyball, stretching myself thin because I just love to compete and play sports. And then I think that last year, the year I played AAA before I moved on, I was doing like a running class in high school. I had high level basketball, and then my mom was like, "You're dead. You're tired all the time. We got to start cutting this stuff out." And we did, and improved. But that's why I thought I went from AA not knowing what any level of hockey was to then the junior A team saying, "Oh, we could have kept you, but you got to go play AAA." And then from that season, I skipped the tier 2 level and I went right to the OHL. So I just got better real fast. I put on 20 pounds of muscle one summer, that young age, 170 to 190 in one summer. Yeah. That's every kid goes through that at some point. And it finally had some muscle to move my lanky ass body around. So it really was really steep in the beginning. And then as we all know, that's, beginner gains. Just like if you take someone who's never lifted in it before, you take them to the gym, they could put on 30 pounds of muscle in a year easily because they've never lifted before. Right. The longer you've lifted, the increments of growth are so much smaller. So that's why I always talk about in my stories now in stick handling. I'm just thinking 0.00001% better every day. Just tiny, tiny improvements.
Right. Because that's the reality. You mentioned Goggins, and I like what he talks about. You have to think of terms as forever. You can't talk to Kote about this. You can't think about like the beach body type of thing. Like I'm not working out for the summer. Even I think about it today, even with athletes, like what is an off season? You're not off. There is no off. Like if you go and get out of shape, you're already behind. Because you got to work that off now, and then you got to catch up to where everybody else is going to be. And guys like, I'm just going to throw out Sidney Crosby, right? Because everybody knows that name. But these guys, the guys who are able to do this, and there are guys with relentless work ethic that we don't even know about, right? And I'm sure about that, that they're already working, right? So when did you come to that realization? Was it after you got drafted, or, was it kind of the first taste, and did you up your game?
It was the second summer of training. The first summer, I didn't know what I was doing. So we just went to the local hockey rink, had like a gym in it. We just hired a dude to do one-on-one training. Okay. And we did that, and it was great. But then the next summer, that's when I took it to another level because I started training in Stouffville. I could drive now, and I would drive 2 towns over to Stouffville and train with Randy Smith at Body Smith, who used to train Stamkos when he was younger, and Del Zotto and all these like kind of NHL guys. So he's the one that's got me into nutrition too. He's like, "You're not going to gain no weight if you don't eat." I was like, "Oh, so that's a big part of it too." He said, "Yep." He got me all these booklets of what to eat. And then he found out that I was a high metabolism guy. He's like, "Oh, you got to start drinking, like at this age, kid, you want to put on weight, you got to start drinking like ice cream smoothies with like eggs in there and 3 scoops of protein powder, just calories. I don't care what you eat, just eat, because we were running like crazy. We were lifting like crazy. And that's why I was able to put on 20 pounds of lean muscle, not just like fat or anything. So early on I did that and I went and made the OHL. I showed up in the best shape. I smoked everyone in the beep test. And they're like, who's this kid that just keeps running? Everybody else was out at level 14. He's at 16. He's still running. And he doesn't even have to. He's already won. He just keeps going. Because I was in freak shape, man. I ran so hard that summer. And that proved to me, I just got attention by being first in line at the drills, hitting everyone, beating everybody in the fitness testing. Boom, now I'm on an OHL championship team. Got my foot in the door. So that told me pretty quick how hard you got to work and you'll get results.
Absolutely. And you can see that. I mean, you can see it. If you think about sports in general, it's like great that you have talent. But if I have a guy who's physically stronger than me, and let's say I'm out there for about 40 seconds on the ice, right? And you have that last 20 seconds. If that guy has another gear and I don't, he's going to win the puck battle anyway. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's kind of what you're talking about. And yeah, it's harder to do that in the NHL level for reasons like I talked about. Everybody ups their game. Mm-hmm. But overall, at the OHL level, if you're already operating like a pro, you can pass those guys. So at that point, you're assistant captain. You're doing really well. You just get drafted. How do you feel? Do you feel top of the world? Do you feel like unsure? Do you feel like you still have to earn every inch?
Well, there's a lot of ups and downs in between, making the OHL and then getting to that, overage year. There's a lot of stuff going on in between. Then you want to talk about the ups and downs. But if you're talking about that year when I'm an assistant captain and we weren't a very good team, but I knew that I was going to go down to play in the AHL at the end of the year. They bring you in as like a amateur tryout. So I was just readying myself for that. I knew that, I wanted to play the power play, but when I get down to pro, I'm probably not going to be playing the power play. So make sure, I guess, keep this mindset of hard work. And I wouldn't say I was on top of the world. I was just like, I'm ready to get this going. I knew it was going to be a real hard challenge. The OHL was a real hard challenge, full of ups and downs. And I was like, man, I'm going to go down there and I'm not fighting, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old dudes anymore. I'm going to be fighting grown men that are 28 and have a family and they're living in some American town and they're not going to want me to hurt them and stuff. So it was intimidating. I wasn't saying I was top of the world. I was super excited to start pro, but I knew I had a storm coming and there's no fight rule down there at the time. And I was ready to get going. I knew it was coming.
And it's interesting because you just said that. I feel like you're on the exact opposite end of that story right now, right? Because you're 27 years old. I know you don't have a family at this point, but you do have a girlfriend, right? And you are older. You have all these things. You're kind of maturing. We've talked about this on the podcast. You're actually hitting the age of the role that you're playing, which most people, I think, don't understand how intimidating it is. How do you feel today, kind of looking back on what you're saying?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of fights since then.
You just fought Ryan Reeves, for those who are not aware, which I would say is arguably second time. But I mean, he's arguably the toughest guy in the NHL. I'd say. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of balls to fight him.
Yeah, I mean, I fell in love with this role. I wouldn't have done it back if that coach back in major midget at 16 turning 17 had said go play physical and I tried it and didn't like it, I wouldn't be here. So I definitely relished that role. I started to read up on that role, and the unsung kind of hero guy won that award on my junior team, and I was like, I guess I'm this kind of guy. I had my GM say once that like statistics, I've never had a player where his statistics matter less than with Gabe's. Like his enthusiasm, his compete level, how much he loves the game, it brings so much to a team more than his play on the ice, and he can play too. So that kind of cemented like how I saw that team win an OHL championship when I wasn't really playing and how much fun they had. I want to be an NHL regular and I want to be a fourth line grinder on a Stanley Cup winning team. So I've embraced that role fully and I love doing it, man. I love it. Not a lot of people want to do it. I look at it as a skill set. How many people are you going to just pick off the street and they could do what I do? Not many, So I think I'm just as skilled in my own way as our captain, Logan Couture, or Brent Burns. Nobody on the roster can do what I do. So I'm a skilled player in my mind.
I think absolutely. And I think you can see that actually. I talked to Cote about this. We tend to fall into patterns. Like we do the same thing kind of over and over again. We don't realize it's in just different context. but you are successful. You're successful in other things. It's showing, it's branching. We'll talk about that a little bit later, right? Into other stuff. And I'm sure it'll continue. And I think you're right. You have a unique skill set, right? You've tailored this skill set. The same thing that Cote did, who today is an entrepreneur, right? He didn't get there by accident, but there's a reason Paul Holmgren went to him and asked him to be an assistant coach. It's clear to me. It was clear to me just talking to him about his story. You see people who are problem solving. I check the boxes. Why? Because I see a path to success. I'm going to figure out how to get there, right? I'm just going to throw out something. If I give you a hot dog stand and I told you had to make money, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's the mindset. That's what got you. That's the skill. Mm-hmm. And if it means punching somebody in the face, and luckily you have the body to handle that.
That's the thing. I do. So that's my God-given thing is my height, my length. You know, I wouldn't say I'm the most explosive guy in the world. I'm not the strongest in the weight room. So I've had to tailor how I fight to that I'm not going to overpower most guys. I'm not going to be able to just straight up go toe to toe with them, which not many guys do anymore anyway. So yeah, you have to just find workarounds and what works for you. And I'm getting pretty good at being technical with it. And, you know, I have a lot of fun doing it. I train for it. I like doing it, and it just adds a dimension. I basically like to fight, not only when a team needs it, but just because I've never really had a bad game when I got in a fight. So I can just keep myself healthy. Yeah. If I'm emotionally engaged, I'm going to play a good game. So that's all I'm doing when you see with all this stuff. I'm just getting myself emotionally engaged all the time to get fired up. And yeah, it's just, I've wanted it more than the next guy. Some other guys, I don't want to fight. Maybe there were guys that were tough and could play, but they just didn't want to do it. And me and Cote wanted to do it. And I know a little different time, obviously, yes, the way when he played, but he always says to me, he wish he worked at his game just like how I'm working at my game, right? Like people think I can't play and stuff. Well, I wouldn't be here if I couldn't. So.
No, you wouldn't. And actually, I think you have 2 goals, 1 assist in the AHL so far in two games, I think.
Yeah, and in preseason, including preseason, I'm on a 4-game goal streak down there. So I was playing 15 minutes a night and penalty killing down there. I was having a blast. So now I'm just getting my foot in the door up here. You know, I played my career high the other night against Vegas, almost 11 minutes, very detailed game. So coaching staff's loving it.
Love that. And again, I think, and this is why I want to tell these stories, man, is that you're 27 years old. People, I don't want to make fun. I'm not going to mention anybody specifically, right? But I think, and I love video games. I'm a huge video game nerd. But I think people look at NHL players as video game characters a lot of times. And I understand that. But as somebody who trains, I don't train to your level. I understand, again, somebody who's failed. I try to take this stuff, failed and succeeded in things. You know, you try to take this stuff into consideration. I try to think of myself. I'm 33. Most people don't know I'm even 33, right? Everybody kind of projects their view of reality onto other people, which is really not real. So when I see a guy who's 27 years old, I'm like, yeah, why can't he have a breakout year at 27 years old, finally make the NHL? And then you have, okay, so let's say you have 5-6 years in the NHL and you don't have 15, you know, like everybody else. Doesn't matter. As long as you find your stride, find your role, it's already a success, right? And I see like no issues with that, right? Like I see guys who are goaltenders are a little bit different, but there are goaltenders who don't even make the pros to like 30, you know?
Yep. I agree.
And that shouldn't be shocking.
No, it shouldn't be. Yeah, it shouldn't be shocking. I have a growth mindset. Just because you think you can't get, just because you think a hockey player can't get better after 25, 26, that's not my problem. I'm getting better all the time. I stick handled for like an hour a day, most days all summer, and my hands got a lot better. I've got a lot more confidence in them. I can, you know, shoot a puck better. Like I can learn how to skate better. I can learn how to learn my edges better. I can learn the tactics of the game better. I am constantly looking for ways to get better. I got better today at our practice, 100%. We worked on wall work after practice with Rocky Thompson, Mike Ricci, 2 guys I can learn a lot from. I got better. So there's no reason I can't have a breakout. And yeah, that is annoying. You know, fans pay our bills and give support to the league, but it's almost like fans think they're so, like, as a fan, they only get to talk about the best players. Like, oh, like I won't talk about that guy. He's a bum. It's like, that's not very like respectful. I don't think. Like you can be a fan of the top players. I am too. I think it's awesome, but don't discount what the guys like me do. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with that. It's because that that whole squad wins a championship. It's very rare that it's one guy doing it. That's why in hockey, you really don't see that, you know? You don't see that big name who carries the entire market. It's like so rare because like it's just not real. Like a guy like you will play 11 minutes and the other guy played like 15.
There's a salary cap. Like if there's a team that was rich enough that could buy all the players, that's another area. Like, or, you know, like you can't do that. You need a complete team, top to bottom. You know, you're going to have guys that are going to score the goals. You're going to have guys that are going to bring the energy. There's going to be guys that are shut down defenders, you know, even down to the equipment people. Like everything in an organization matters. And that's what Doug Wilson Sr. here loves. He loves that. I was talking today, like everything about here is the people first. Obviously you got to be able to play, but he's going to pick a better person over. If you're equal talent, he's going to pick the better person, the better reputation, the better work ethic, the better character, because that stuff matters. And I've noticed in San Jose, all of the players here, we might have a goal scorer, but he could still play defense. Like there's a lot of two-way hockey players here. And I think starts at the top, you know, like everybody can play both ways here. I've been in organizations where there's just like, oh yeah, he doesn't play defense, so don't worry about him when we talk about that stuff. Like we're a top to bottom organization. Everybody plays the right way. And that starts from good people.
Yeah, no, I want to dig into that a little bit actually, because you mentioned one, growth mindset. That's a buzzword for me. And then top down leadership. Like, do you see that more? Is it more noticeable to you on the other end? Like if you see the game today, and we don't have to pick on specific teams. I don't want to name anybody and get anybody in trouble, right? But can you see that in organizations today that maybe you've been around or you heard stuff where you're like, they're top down focused and it's obvious to me on the ice, or at least on the product on the ice?
Mm-hmm. And especially in like the character of the people too. Like, you know, I think that's a big thing. I think so far being in this organization, it's the most cohesive. The AHL team up here, everything's the most cohesive, honestly. I'm not just saying that because I'm here. I've been on other teams and you couldn't talk about it at the time. And there's some things that aren't run the way you think they should be. And if people always think the NHL is the top of the top and everything runs smoothly, no, it does not. It really, really doesn't. And it's very shocking sometimes how decisions are made, you know, when you're a guy in the room and you see really like it's interesting. So yeah, I think that's why they've had long-term success here. Obviously, every team goes through cycles, and we're trying to build that back up to being a good team. But you can see why. Like, I just think it's run really well here, like really well.
Do you think what you've learned over the years has helped you adapt to that market better, right? Like the journey you've taken. Do you think obviously I commend them, right? And I believe all that. Do you think it's also yourself though, a little bit too, where you have that maturity kind of build the relationship immediately?
Or that I don't worry about things I can't control.
Right.
That's probably more of it.
That's hard.
Like in the past, I was just so all about hockey, nothing else, had to make it. If I don't, there's no plan A or no plan B because I'm going to make plan A work. You know, like it was that mindset, which I guess it can work for some people, but for me, it wasn't working. It wasn't, I need a more balanced approach. I almost have too much passion and too much intensity that I need to like back off and know when to like stay within myself. So that really changed over quarantine. I really changed. I didn't like when I came home out of quarantine in March from Lehigh Valley. I didn't like where my hockey career was at. I wanted to play games up there. I didn't get it. Things changed. Some things were out of my control. I let that bother me. So this whole summer and the time off before coming to San Jose was about, I'm just going to control what I can and not worry about anybody else. And I've had a couple instances even early on here where things might have in the past derailed me. And instead I just said, you know what? No, snap out of that. You're going to control what you can. You're going to get the extra work in when you need to. You're going to do all these little things. And that's what's allowed me to be ready to play now, I think. So that's been everything for me is the mindset. Mindset is everything.
It's
as
huge.
You all know.
No, I love that. And I want to talk about what you just said to me because I've been working, I would say this has been like more than a decade long journey, whatever, 15 years. The trigger that you built into your head, right? And, you know, again, I was close to my dad, so I hear my dad in my head kind of in these moments, but I've also listened to a lot of other things. There's things I listen to on repeat now, you know, over and over again, because you want them to kick in those moments, right? Like when you get knocked down by a life, you want them to kick in. What is that voice for you? What is kicking in the back of your head there in those moments?
Just
Like, where do you get that?
all the failures. Like, you have to fail your way to success. That's literally the only way there is to it. Nobody has just walked into something and dominated. They've had to fail their way to success. The most successful people have failed the most. So that's what I hear all the time. So, like, for example, I'm just saying, like, in the past, if I had a practice like I did today, in the past, I would have been like, wow, like, I did not execute well. Like, this is not good. Like, why? Whereas today I'm like, I got out of practice and I'm like, wow, what an opportunity to like learn. I got some reps in that I haven't been able to see in game situations, 5-on-5. Okay, interesting. How can I get better? How can I learn that? It's awesome that I did it in practice. And now when I get an opportunity to game, when it actually matters, I'll do it right. Like, that's the different mindset. In the past, it was, oh my God, I'm going to get cut. They think I suck. Like, for one minute thing. And my line mates would be like, there's nothing wrong. Like, why are you freaking out? But I'm so like detailed and stuff. So now it's just like, it's just a different mindset. And awareness immediately kicks in. Positivity, like, hey, you're good. It's an opportunity to learn. A perceived failure means you can learn and do it better the next time. So I don't know. That just kicks in right away now. And that's just practice over and over again, and digging into my life of doing that self-authoring program I did. And I narrowed down 5 explicit times that I let me controlling what I could not control derail my career, and why I thought I was not in the NHL already. 5 specific times. Yep. 2 were in junior, 3 were in pro, that I would just clear cut, put all my energy into something that I truly couldn't control, instead of focusing on my perspective, my attitude, my work. I thought I was owed something. I deserved something. Nobody deserves anything. You earn it. I hadn't earned it.
I feel that. And I goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's forever too, right? It's like, if you think about the mindset you were talking about, if you think about, oh, I had a bad workout day. Okay, you're focused on the day. You're focused on the micro. If you think about, I'm training forever, I got to worry too much about yesterday's workout. I got to worry about tomorrow's workout, and make sure that it was better. Oh, and I have another workout after that, and another one, and another one, and another one. So it's like the idea to rest so much on something that's like a fraction of a percentage of your life. It's like you start putting that, those puzzle pieces together, and you're like, I think I've maxed out there.
Exactly. And I used to tie how I did in hockey every day to how good of a person I was. So if I had a bad practice, I was a bad person that day. That's literally
interesting.
How I acted. Like, there's no other way. After looking through it, it's like, if hockey was my life. So if I didn't do good at it, then my life sucks. So that's wow. I think a lot of guys go through that, honestly. So now I'll have something happen and I leave the rink. I'll have my time to think about it, maybe talk to my girlfriend and my mom about it. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a great dude. I'm a good person. I love myself as a person first. And then I go into my hockey space and I either do well or I do poorly. And that'll be dictated on how hard I go and how hard I work and how competent I am. But when I leave that space, nothing can change that I'm a good person that cares about others, that works hard to make change, that is a good brother, son, boyfriend, all that.
That's okay. This is a perfect segue, because I want to talk about heroics a little now. And again, I'm not trying to call you a hero or something like that, because nobody wants to call themselves a hero. That's nonsense. But you fight for people, man. You fight for people. You're an emotional guy to some degree, but you're in control of your emotions. You're not erratically emotional. You're empathetic, right? And that is very clear in your behavior. I know you've been fighting for gay rights, stuff like that, diversity, inclusion. Again, these are not big topics that I talk about personally every single day. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm an expert on these topics, right? So you will know more about them than I do. Having said that, I'm interested because the mindset is the same, I think. And I think you have an intensity in your stomach, in your gut, that tells you to do these things, to fight for people, fight for space, right? Fight for people's feelings, and maybe it's your connection to your mom who did it for you. Maybe it's, I don't know. I'm just throwing out guesses here. Why is that? Why do you think that is? And how is that going so far, by the way?
I mean, I've taken so many personality tests now on my own and with my girlfriend and stuff. And I always get the same kind of, protagonist. I'm like that outgoing, whatever you want to call it, that type that's just going to be front and center. I don't mind attention on myself. I'm not afraid of it. I'm always going to step up for what I think. I'm always going to tell you how I feel. I'm a little volatile. Like, that's just always what comes up for me. So it goes back to, it's just how I've always been. I mean, I don't know if it came from anybody in particular. I think that's just how I am. Like, my mom was a teacher, so I really knew what right and wrong was. I did. It was had that instilled in me how to act in certain situations, how to behave, how to be respectful, all that stuff. So if someone was bullying someone, I would be the first person to be like, "Hey, it's enough of that. Like, like, why are you being rude? Why are you being mean?" Like I was a young kid doing that. I've always done that. If somebody bullies someone, I'm the first one to be like, "Hey, shut up." So I don't know where that comes from. I think that's just some people just have that. And then obviously it's funny how I've transitioned into be a hockey fighter, right?
But it's the anti-bully.
That's I've always been that. Always. I don't know why. It's just who I've been. So my brother is kind of like, he has that in him. He's just more of like the go with the flow kind of dude. You know what I mean? Where I'm always just very serious, almost to a fault. Like sometimes I miss sarcasm right out of my head because I'm just like, what did you say? Like I'm too like intense. So I just tried to harness that. Like, I was a jock in high school, but I wasn't like the dick jock. I was just like, hey, I like everybody, play house sports with my friends. They're good guys. I'll hang out with like the kids in science class that like to talk about aliens and space too. I don't care. Like I'll talk about Lord of the Rings and dinosaurs. I freaking love Dragon. Like I'm a goofball. So I can hang with different crowds. So I don't ever think of any other crowd differently. So I'd always stand up for people, blah, blah, blah. I remember getting bullied in elementary school because I'd hang out with the kids, they played Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. And then I'd go back with the jocks and play football. They're like, why are you going to play with them? It's like, because they're cool. I can do both. It's not mutually exclusive. I don't have to be one and not the other. So that just transitioned through my life into standing up for teammates, being super emotional about it to get amped up to fight people. And then into seeing an LGBT woman be supported by her family financially because she's dating another woman. I'm just like, what? Like, how is that a thing? She's done nothing wrong. Like why are you? So I had to dig into that issue. I had to learn a bit about it. And that's what launched me into being kind of an activist.
Yeah. And it's that same repeated pattern, right? And it's just really interesting to see. And how is that going so far? I know you've been very involved. I know you're having a lot of conversations. I didn't follow everything you've done. I did a little bit of research, but do you feel like you're actually making an impact? And do you think it's something you want to take further as you move forward?
Yeah, I do. I really do. And I credit all the people who who message me about it. It's getting to the point where I can't message. Just like you said, you can't keep. Nobody can keep up with anyone 100%. You have your own life to live, but I can't even keep up with all of the stuff now coming in. It's like, it's awesome. Like, it's almost starting to have to focus more on not the macro, not the micro. It used to be, I got to DM every person back. Now it's, I physically can't. I don't have the time. I don't have that. I need to keep myself mentally fit to make anything happen in my life. So I've had to actually start to learn to say, like, kind of don't read that one today. Don't read 70 of them, 80 of them. Like, so, but to get messages like, I because I've followed you for so long, I got my whole, he's like a 10-year-old kid, got my whole team to stop using homophobic language because it's not cool. And you kind of showed me that. And I sent that to Brock McGillis, the guy I do a lot of work with. And he's like, dude, that's a shift. Like, that's a small thing, but that's a big thing. So it's just a lot of little things like that. And I think it always goes farther than I even think. Like, I'm not an egotistical person. Like, I think I'm a good person. I work hard. I'm having a great time over here. But I think a lot of people tell me a lot, and I don't really get how far it goes. Like, anybody can access an Instagram account. It's a public account. Like, it's crazy how far these things can go and how much a little thing, putting your pronouns in your bio or sharing a story about trans rights goes so far for people. So I'm just trying to continue that while obviously managing being a pro hockey player. It's kind of like my space. I go to practice, and then my space after that is, activism, talk to my mom, talk to my girlfriend, and just show myself and how I'm living and how I'm learning. And I think that goes a long way for people. It's kind of like overwhelming a bit. Like it's just added so much love to my life, man. I feel like I have a whole army of people behind me that want to see me do well. Just because I've put my pronouns in my bio or something, it's really cool. It's kind of hard to talk about because it really means a lot to me.
That's pretty awesome, man, because it's like leadership. And it's funny, a lot of the stuff I brought up with Riley's coming up with you. It's like I bring up the concept, if you build it, they will come, right? And you did it by mistake. And I remember the story, right? You kind of just put it was during Gay Pride Month, I think, and you had the tape on your stick, and you put it in a different way, and you scored a goal. It was on national television, but you were just doing. Do you see? You were just doing your purpose, your actual purpose. So it's like you kind of actually fell into your purpose, and by doing, you just attract those around you. It's like you can't help it. You're not doing it on purpose, but it's like it almost it lets you know you're almost doing something right. Right? Do you feel that way?
100%, dude. I fell into everything. Just like I told you, I fell into playing high-level hockey.
Right.
I fell into being an activist. I've fallen into all these things, just being myself. And that's really what the gist of, fighting for all these issues is letting people be their authentic selves. And I know what it feels like. I can't relate to being Black. I can't relate to being gay. Sure. I can relate to knowing what it feels like to be my authentic self and wake up every day and go after what I want and have nobody stopping me. You know what I mean? Like nobody's putting a roadblock in the way except for my own. I'm going against myself. Everybody should have the right to wake up and go against themselves and be the best person they can be without anyone telling them no. If you're not bothering anyone, you're not breaking the law, who the frick cares what anybody else does? If somebody wants to go count how many fire hydrants are in the neighborhood and that's going to make them happy, you know what, dude? Put that on Instagram. I'll find that interesting. If you're passionate about it, I'll think it's hilarious and I'll love it. I don't care what you do. Don't hurt people. Do it for the right reasons. Let people be. So that's why it really fires me out when someone says that somebody can't do something because of the color of their skin, because of their sexual orientation, or if they have gender dysphoria and they're born a male and they need to be a female and they need to transition. Like, why do you care? It really bothers me. Like, I don't think I get into this work if that doesn't deeply bother me.
One thing that you said, actually, I was watching one of your videos, and one thing you said in the video, and this stuck out to me in particular, you said life is unfair enough. Like, we don't need to make it more unfair on people. Man. And I think that's so important. Is like I think about this stuff because our role individually is that we can really only help the people around us. We only have like a certain amount of reach, right? So like what you're doing is you're just like, hey, life is unfair enough. It's tough enough. We all get it. Everybody gets it. But let's try to make it a little easier for those around us. And I don't always feel like everybody really buys into that. No. But I think it's important to have these beacons of people who do. Yes. Do you feel like I'm kind of onto that, what I'm saying?
Everybody who considers himself a human being should be able to relate to that statement. Like that's how I approach online hate and on the internet and stuff. Like there's just, you have no idea what that person on the other end of the phone is going through. You look at what's her name? Sarah Silverman talked about, she's Jewish, and she talked about how she had a friend growing up and his parents were out of town working big jobs all the time. He was always left to his own devices. He didn't feel love. So what did he do? He found some friends at school. They happened to be neo-Nazis. He didn't choose them to be. Those are the people that showed him love. Whether it was hateful love of white supremacy is the way to go and we're going to wear swastikas, he didn't care. He just wanted to be loved by someone. So to go hate on that guy because he's adopted those things. Yes, it's not right. But like people just want to be appreciated. People want to be loved and people latch on to things for the wrong reasons, but so how would you never know if some guy on social media is spouting about white supremacy? How would you know that that's his life and he's not even aware of it? So that's why I try to have compassion and empathy for everyone. Like you have no idea what other people are going through. Everybody goes through something. If you're a billionaire, you get to the top and you realize all this money means nothing. And you see billionaires, jump off a building because they're just don't know they have no meaning in life. Like there's you can look up tons of cases of people that have everything but feel like they have nothing, and you can look up tons of cases that people have nothing and they just appreciate everything. There's no recipe for happiness. It comes from within. So I'm sick of that just. Yeah,
life is a weird. Life is in a weird gray area. No, I think you nailed it. It's this weird gray area that we don't really understand to some degree. And I think, again, I'll go back to the saying: life is hard enough. We have to help the people around us because if we do not, and let's take it back actually to the very beginning of the conversation when we were talking about hockey, where we talk about players and even like yourself, right? Let's think back even a few years before you even had a name, right, of any kind. Let's think back to 21, right? you were struggling. I remember even you came to the Flyers, you were trying out for the Flyers. You had an injury early at camp. People throw that aside. They have no idea what's going on behind you. They don't know what's going on behind the story. They don't know even a guy, let's even throw out a guy like James Van Riemsdyk here, and this is in Philly. He had not his best year last year. He's been obviously very good every year as a player. This year is probably having the best career of his life. Nobody knew what happened to him last year. They knew he had a baby. Nobody knows what he's going through. Nobody knows. And we all say, oh, he's done. What if he's literally going through something very tough right now that you will never find out about because his organization just has more sense than to let you know? And because you don't know that detail, you shit on the guy when reality is the life is a series of ups and downs.
Yeah, or some dude on the internet's just spouting transphobic stuff, and then you just message him and be like, why you feel that way? Instead of saying, you're an awful person, I condemn you to be canceled, you're awful, like blah, 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 you can't be redeemed. No, like, hey, why do you feel that way? That's inviting conversation. That's not condemning anyone. Hey, like, I'm sorry you feel that way. Why do you feel that way? Let's talk about it. Like, that's how we got to have empathy for people. Because if you just shut someone down, why would they ever change?
I love that. And that I believe that. I agree with you. And I think that's the way to get people to change. To show empathy the other way is to have those probably difficult conversations you don't want to have, where you have to walk away and kind of be like, agree to disagree. But even though in that moment you probably don't feel like you made much change, you probably did. You usually like move the needle, right? You're not moving a mountain.
Like plant the seed in their head, because
yes,
the way it is, honestly, I seek out the truth. I look at both sides, and on these issues, there's always a right side. Human rights is undefeated. It's always right. There is no loss. So it's interesting how when people want to argue about semantics and bring up all this conjecture, I just hit them with straight logic on these issues. Like, you can't fault the logic. If you're a logical person, when you start to dig into human rights, there's a very clear disparity between right and wrong. So the people that, it's really, unfortunately, people who are interpreting the Bible and religion in a poor light. That's really what it comes down to. It's tough, but some people just want to interpret it with hate. And I know a lot of Catholics and Christians that interpret it with all the love in the world. Who am I to judge somebody else? That's God's job. They're entitled to live their life. Like, so I try to just hit them with that. And if it comes down to it, they just say, yep, no, marriage is between a man and a woman because Jesus said so. And I'm just like, well, we're going to have to agree to disagree. But I really think that you're not following logic. You're not following love. And I really hope that you figure that out one day. That's kind of what you leave it at. But
if you're able to walk away, if you feel so passionate about something and you can walk away making that statement, I think that's a pretty bold way to end it. Absolutely. Right? Because most people can't do that.
No, they they come at you hard saying, hard saying, yeah, exactly, saying all this awful stuff. And if you just look them in the face or over the internet and just say, like, sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry that you don't want to seek truth and understand what's right and wrong. And I hope it works out for you. Just don't bother anybody. You can say your words all you want, but don't ever act on anything. That's kind of what I leave it at, because I don't know. It's a thing I'm trying to learn. It's almost like I'm basically trying to just build like a mental playbook. Maybe I should start writing it down of like always just arguments to trump all the other arguments that people that are against these issues bring up. I was talking about that on Brock McGillis's podcast. I want to have like a way to refute
a
Rolodex of ways to refute things calmly and compassionately and empathy. Like, no, well, this is wrong. You're wrong because of this, this, and this. Like,
it's actually not a bad idea. I mean, if you really want to be prepared for these conversations, even if you don't have it with you, just preparing it alone, like going through the exercise.
It's always going through my head, like, because I'm always talking about these like things, and people ask me questions, and you're always trying to have to formulate yourself. But these issues are so big. Like LGBTQ is it's a little more cut and dry, but like racism, for example, is so complex. It is still cut and dry. Racism, but the amount of, I was just on the phone with Black Girl Hockey cover Renee Hess, to how complex it is. It gets very tricky to talk about it with someone when they come at you with their views and they have their own media that they consume and the media is portraying it a certain way. It gets very, very tricky, but I want to continue to get better at that. That's kind of like a goal of mine.
Life is like at this point, man, I don't blame anybody for anything. After the several years that we've had when it comes to information and evolving and just having conversations. At this point, I think like most of my anger towards anything is kind of just dissipated. I'm kind of like, I just don't know. I'm open to conversation, you know? And I feel like that's kind of where I land. And I think if people are just open to conversation, they can land themselves in a better spot in the end.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep an open mind at the end of the day. That's what you should have. Because that's a growth mindset. You're not finished. You're not like you're 20, you're 40, 50 years old. You're not done. You're not set in your ways. It's just a mindset. That's a perspective that you have, you know, like I've had someone tell me who's a devout Christian, like, doesn't matter what you say in this conversation, I'm decided minded. Like there's nothing you could say, no fact, no thing that you could ever bring up that's going to change my belief that LGBTQ people are not mentally ill. Like there's just nothing you can say. And I'm just like, I just can't even, I don't know what to say to that. That is the most closed-minded, closed off thing I've ever heard in my life.
Maybe that's the next nut to crack. I'll tell you that most people behave a certain way to something because of preconceived notions, but also they're wired a certain way, and we all are kind of. So there are ways to crack that nut. And I would say never give up on that battle. So let me ask you this. Let's get into the last question here. What's in the future? What's in store? Is obviously you got an NHL career, I would say, thriving at this point, and I assume you're not gonna quit on that anytime soon. So, but what do you see happening kind of like as you hit your 30s? Do you see yourself kind of, continuing the NHL thing, maybe, starting a business? Do you see entrepreneurship? Do you see foundation stuff, or you have no idea? Or just kind of hockey?
I just know that, I'm a good dude. I think I have a lot of transferable skills that I've learned in hockey, and I'm a people person. So I'm just trying to make the most of what I have right now. I'm not going to be able to play hockey forever. So it's what I love to do. So I'm going to do it as long as I can, and I'm healthy, and we continue to try to get better every day. And when the day comes, I just would love to have as many options as possible. That's basically what it is. Activism will always be a pillar of that. It may not be the focus, but it'll always, if I go on to do something totally different, activism will always be shared on my social media. It'll always be a part of my life I'm learning and listening about, because that's a human obligation I have. That's what I think we all have. To spend a little time out of our day. It's not just all about us all the time. We need to think about us as a collective. That's just my belief. But yeah, I don't know. I want to have them, as I said, the most opportunities I can pick and choose from and figure out. And I don't really know how that's going to go, but I'm just having a lot of fun being an NHL hockey player, finding a way to get better every day, prove people wrong that I can be here, kind of just fulfill that dream of being a regular, and then go from there. But it's not like I have to anymore. That's the key. I don't have to make it. I'd love to. That'd be awesome. Wow. Amazing. But I don't have to. I'm going to be just as fulfilled if I don't. I'm going to be able to move on to bigger and better things.
I mean, stay humble, but you kind of did. Just saying.
No, I'm not a regular. I'm not a regular yet. So I want to be.
But it's not, I don't know if being a regular is a signifying of making it. I mean,
that's just the next step, I guess.
Yes, because the reality is you've already done something that, quite frankly, 99% of hockey players are not able to achieve. Mm-hmm. So to some point, you've already made it. It's kind of like this is just the cherry on the top, as far as I see it.
Yeah,
I love the attitude.
Yeah, I don't see it that way. I don't see it as a cherry on top, because I see the cherry on top is like the Stanley Cup. That would be the cherry on top. Like I want to be just. I want to prove that I can play in modern day game. I can keep up. I can play with skill and detail enough to be that hard to play against, that I'm valuable in the NHL. So that's my goal. And if I don't, as I said, I got plenty of other things I can dig into. And the more I share of who I am online, keep fighting for the right things, because that's what I feel like I have an obligation to do. I feel like the options for me will just keep growing.
I love that. And opportunity will meet when you're prepared, for sure.
Exactly, because I fall into everything, right? So if I'm going to look at history of myself, why don't I just be me to the best of my ability, which I'm doing now at 27, almost 28. I'm the most optimized I've ever been. So why not just be myself, and I'll fall into what I should do next.
That's why you got to have the forever. That's why you do it forever, right? Because you'll always be prepared. For anything that comes forward. Well, I love that. Kurtis, thank you so much, man. I mean, we're at the hour. This was perfect. This is exactly the stuff I wanted to talk about, and I thought you had the perfect mindset for it. Anything you want to tell people that you're working on? Anything upcoming that maybe you want to give a shout out to?
Sure. Yeah, we have in London, Ontario, where I spend my summers now, there's a guy named James Purcell, former hockey player. He owns a company called Conquest Hockey, and we've partnered, and we're going to do a short little line of Conquer Homophobia hockey. So cool. He's got a nice logo where it's Conquer Hockey, but we've changed it now to Conquer Homophobia on the bottom. And I have coming out relatively soon 2 sets. I got a nice clean gray sweater with the logo in a rainbow. And we got some LGBT messaging on the side and the back, really clean look, kind of for the people that aren't afraid to have the rainbow kind of on them and be loud and proud about it. And then we have kind of an undercover one that I've designed as like an ally one, where it's a grayscale rainbow. It's the same messaging, but black, white, and red, where it's a little more like edgy and looks good, but you kind of have to read it a little more to understand what it is. So people that aren't as comfortable saying, hey, rainbow, exactly. So it's kind of like an ally one and an out person or super supportive one, let's say. And then we might do a tie-dye one. So I'm excited to get that out, and I'm not making any money from it. All of it goes back either into designing the sweaters better or into a charity. So it's just a way to get my message out there to people, what I stand for, and everybody rocking some pretty sweet gear. So excited for that.
Love that. All right. Well, definitely everybody make sure to check it out and keep following Kurtis Gabriel on Twitter and Instagram and everything. I know you're sharing, you're always talking stuff out. So if you guys haven't, share or follow him on there and check out all the stuff that he's doing in the future. And plus you share awesome like footage from backstage and with the Sharks and stuff. So yeah, cool workout stuff. So definitely check out your social following.
Yeah, hopefully that keeps growing. I said, if I can become a regular and get a little more cemented here, then that's only going to grow. The content's only going to go up as the money I make goes up. So let's keep it going here.
I like that. All right, we'll build that brand, dude.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for everybody who's listening, thank you so much for for following Flyers Nitty Gritty. Thank you for listening to this. Like, subscribe, comment. If you guys want to say anything, Kurtis, comment on the bottom. I'll let them know if there's anything specific. But yeah, thank you for listening. We're going to keep doing these. I got more coming, in the future. And again, thanks again, Kurtis. This was awesome. Really appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate it, Yariv. We had a great talk with Jamie, and I knew this. I told Renee before this, like, oh, this is going to be easy. This is going to be the best podcast ever. I told you off the air, like, it's going to be so easy. I vibe with you, so it's awesome.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, man. And to everybody else, remember to always level up.